Hi, my name is Adrien Cohen. I am the founding managing director of SCI Ventures. And so today I'll be talking about this new fund that we launched a year ago, SCI Ventures, the first mission-driven venture capital fund dedicated to paralysis. Um, so starting with our vision and our ambition, the goal of the fund is really to accelerate the next generations of treatments for people living with paralysis. Spinal cord injury is a very large unmet need. Most investors don't realize the opportunity and the size of the unmet need. We're talking about 20 million people globally living with very limited therapeutic options and one of the largest medical burden, $3 to $6 million per individual over the lifetime in terms of lifetime cost. So it is a huge unmet need, and we need to find a way to bring the best innovation from the lab to the real world. And so that is why we created SCI Ventures, to identify the best research, the best innovation that is stuck in the lab, stuck in preclinical phase, to really find a way to bring it all the way to the clinic. The way we do it is threefold. One, we invest. We invest in the best and most promising biotech and neurotech startups. Two, we play the role of a catalyst, and I will come back to that, in a minute. But essentially, we're trying to really activate an investment market and attract more investment into the field of SCI through the investment that we make as SCI Ventures. And three, we take a long-term horizon. We've structured the fund as fully evergreen, which means that every time we make money, we reinvest 100% of our profits, so that there's this vehicle that continuously finance innovation in spinal cord injury. So mission-driven investment, catalyst investor, and fully evergreen. Now, the way we've structured the vehicle is very unique. We have, for the first time, managed to get the backing of some of the most important foundations, US, UK, and Europe. The Christopher Reeve Foundation, Wings for Life, Shepherd Center, one of the largest neuro rehab hospital in the world, Spinal Research here in the UK, and Promobilia in Scandinavia. And what that gives us is obviously some level of philanthropic capital that we're able to channel into the best startups. But more importantly, that is truly a superpower because it gives us access to, one, expertise, and two, network, which means that we have access to the best deal flow, the best companies that have been, funded in the lab by those foundations and that are ready to move to the next stage, to the preclinical stage where we can come in and help activate this research. It gives us access to the best diligence machine, and it also helps us support this portfolio and give it the best way to the clinic. And that is how we play the role of a catalyst, is by having this really this stamp, this label of expertise that helps the market understands what is most promising and ensures that we draw in as much funding as possible into the field. We did not invent the model. We got a lot of inspiration and help from other expert specialists found in other disease areas, like cystic fibrosis, like type 1 diabetes, who, in the past few years have had phenomenal success activating a market in their respective areas. They were facing essentially the same problem as spinal cord injury, with really interesting science in the lab, but very little translation. And they acknowledged the need for a venture capital fund to activate this market and bring this science to the real world. Cystic fibrosis obviously had a tremendous success, and an investment returned 3.3 billion to the foundation, which means that they now have the balance sheet to solve this condition. T1D Fund has also been very successful. They started with 40 million in 2015. This is now a $200 million fund. One of the companies they've backed had, the first FDA-approved disease-modifying therapy for type 1 diabetes. So not a cure, but the first treatment that is not just going after symptoms. And because they play this role of an expert fund, they've been able to catalyze and attract close to $1 billion to the fight against juvenile diabetes. So all of this has happened in 5 to 10 years. And that is also our hope that with SCI Ventures, we can see the same pace, the same acceleration, and the same impact for the condition we care about, spinal cord injury. We've been very busy after just a year. This is a snapshot of the portfolio we've put together. In just 1 year, we have put together a portfolio of 7 companies that we've backed across a wide range of modalities. Onward Medical is how we started this initiative. It was initially seeded by the Christopher Reeve Foundation, one of our backing foundations in 2016, and with the goal of applying epidural stimulation to restore movement and sensation. And if you fast forward to today, they've had tremendous success, recently having obtained the first FDA approval for a chronic SCI therapy. And so we've really modeled the fund after this initial success with the desire to create 20 success stories like Onward, not just one. And so we've invested into 6 more companies. Axenis, which is a spin-out from Harvard, a small molecule drug that is going after reactivation of dormant tissue. Augmental, which is a sort of a non-invasive brain-computer interfaces. They're essentially using the tongue as a finger to operate and control technology, like your phone or computer, thus restoring autonomy and independence for people living with paralysis. We have invested into Sanya and EG427, 2 companies doing very advanced gene therapy with a focus on dysfunctional neurocircuits and specific functions that are impaired after spinal cord injury. Sanya is focused on addressing spasticity, which obviously is a huge problem for our population. And EG427 is focused on bladder dysfunction, which is very likely one of the, if not the most important priority for our population. Helix is a recent investment we made in a company based in Cambridge, UK, that is applying cutting-edge AI to find new mechanisms and repurpose drugs for rare and neglected conditions. And through our investments, we've managed to create a new program that is focused and dedicated to spinal cord repair and regeneration. And so it is very exciting to finally have the latest wave of technologies like AI applied to uncovering cures for SCI. And the last one is to be announced soon, but was completed and is a very advanced brain-computer interface that is not penetrating in the sense that it doesn't damage the brain like Neuralink type of approaches. So a wide range of modalities, small molecule, gene therapy, neurotechnology, brain-computer interfaces, all going after 2 main strategies. One, how do we restore functions? How do we go after bladder, movement, bowel, section functions, spasticity, pain? And 2, longer term, how do we eventually get to our ultimate goal, which is a biological repair of the spinal cord, i.e. a cure? And for the second bucket, we'll need to keep pushing technologies around gene therapy, tissue engineering, so find a way to really regenerate the spinal cord. That's really how we think about our strategy, and that is the mandate we've set to the fund. Now, if you look at the traction of those 7 companies, we are, after a year, already getting early signal that the model is working. First of all, we're finding really good companies, as you can tell from the companies on the screen. Quality companies are investable that have a commercially viable path, which is extremely important to attract funding from private investors. And number 2, we're able to draw in this private capital and really nudge those companies from their preclinical phase all the way to the commercial stage and the real world. Sanya and Helix are still preclinical, but are progressing quite fast. And we're hopeful that in the coming 1 to 2 years, we'll be able to get them to the edge of the clinic. Importantly, we have managed to nudge 2 companies to clinical trial, meaning that those are companies that were in many ways stuck or in a preclinical phase when we came in, and we, through our investment and through the support of our ecosystem, we're able to get those companies to a place where they're now finally bringing their innovation to a human stage, which is what we obviously care about. If you look at Axonis, this is an oral drug, and this company, when we got involved, was at lab stage at Harvard. We nudged them all the way through the preclinical phase, and they just recently closed a gigantic Series A round, $115 million, which is very rare in biotech, especially this with those market conditions, which means that they now have the resources to start clinical trial, and they are in the process of running a phase 1 trial. EG427 was in a similar situation, French company going after bladder control and incontinence, and we've been able to nudge them to a clinical stage, raised close to $30 million, and are now starting their clinical trial in the US, which means that we're going to be seeing this type of therapy and options getting to our community, getting to the real world, which is why we created the vehicle in the first place. Onward, which started, obviously before SCI Ventures was created, which was nudged and supported by our ecosystem, Christopher Reeve, Wings for Labs, Panel Research in the UK, is clearly the North Star and the guiding star for us, having received for the first time FDA approval for a chronic SCI, and obviously showing that it's possible to bring therapies to market in our space. Zooming out a little bit from the investments we've made, a big part, obviously, of our role as a specialist fund in SCI is to educate the market, is to syndicate and get the best investors in the world to understand the indication, understand the biology of the injury, understand why it's investable and why it's treatable. And in a year, we've been able to put SCI on the map for a number of private investors that historically or traditionally would not have looked into SCI as a viable option, because historically there hasn't been enough successes. And so I'm very proud to share that top tier investors like VenBio in the West Coast, EQT, Ondera, funds that are multi-billion-dollar funds are now investing in the field. To maybe wrap up and give you a little bit of perspective on our thesis and why we're so excited with the impact we're having with the fund and the sort of impact we think we can have in neuroregeneration and SCI. A big part of our learning as we invest and support the best innovation in the space is that SCI in many ways is a great strategic indication to fast track innovation into other neurodegenerative conditions. Spinal cord injury is a well understood condition. It's stable in time. It has a clean and fast regulatory path. And so in many ways, it's a very ideal entry point to test and then prove and fast track innovation into other adjacent neuro conditions that are much harder and that expand the market opportunity. What you see on the slide is that the companies we've invested in all started with SCI, but are able and are already expanding their technology impact beyond SCI. And if you zoom out, neuroscience has been obviously a very difficult field. There's been historically an approach of slowing down the progression of complex diseases with no success, like Parkinson or Alzheimer. Our approach is different. We're trying to be much more ambitious, trying to reverse paralysis rather than just slow down the progression of condition. But we're starting with an indication that is in many ways simpler, spinal cord injury. And we're seeing more and more that investors are understanding our thesis and co-investing with us to get the best innovation to our community. Thank you.